It is time for one more high school hurrah. Under Armour All-America Week begins now. Under Armour All-America game practice, where the college football stars of tomorrow will be on this field today. The first of two televised practices. Today, we've got one tomorrow. We've got the Skills Challenge coming up Tuesday night on ESPN2 and leading the way to the Under Armour All-America game coming up Thursday, 6 o'clock Eastern on ESPN2. We are here for the 13th year. Matt Schick along with Craig Hobart and Jerry Hamilton. The numbers speak for themselves about the kind of talent we will see on the field behind us today. More than 90 players from the ESPN 300 are here today. We've got 10 five-star players from the class of 2020, 11 players ranked number one at their position, and we've got 7 players that are going to announce at the Under Armour All-America game and reveal where they are going, including 2 in the top 10. More on that as we proceed. Craig, you've done this a time or two here. Why is this week so important?
Well, it's interesting. Nearly 80% of the class is signed. So you say, oh, what may be the importance of an all-star game? But I think there's 2 things. From the player's perspective, this is really their first chance to get a glimpse of what it's going to be like in college. For a lot of these players, they are used to being the best player on the field and maybe not having to worry about the little things. Throughout this week, they're going to be challenged and realize what it's like to not just be the best player on the field, but be one of the best players on the field and what they need to do to be able to rise to the top when they are amongst the best. For us, from a scouting standpoint, this is a really interesting week because it tells us about the intangibles. Everybody you're going to see on this field this week is excellent. You can turn on a film, they have the physical ability, but which ones are going to get to college and maximize their talent, take care of the little things, because it's tough to be on first date behavior for 1 week. You're going to learn a lot about these young men and get a glimpse about, hey, this guy's going to make it, this guy may struggle. So it's a really great opportunity to get a look at that, Jerry.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when you come into this, we talk about all the 5-star players. We're going to talk about the great defensive ends in this game. Yesterday in practice 1, team pressure, the defensive linemen, the interior guys, Gervon Dexter going to Florida, Jacqueline Roy going to LSU, Jacoby Cowan going to Ohio State. There's guys that rise in the rankings at these games. Those 3 guys are already off to a great start, and I think they're going to have a huge impact in this game.
7 of the top 10 players are here. 3 of the top 5. We mentioned 10 5-star players. We got the number 1 overall player, Julian Fleming. We're going to hear from him on set in a matter of moments. Darnell Washington as well. You see Desmond Evans there, number 2 player overall, number 1 defensive end. He's heading to North Carolina. He's certainly one of those stars to watch.
Yeah, early on, the defensive line is jumping out, and it all starts with the number 2 ranked player in the nation, Desmond Evans. And you think about comparisons, who he may remind you of at the next level, and I look at his frame and the length. It reminds me of Chase Young, who came out of DeMatha High School in Maryland. At the same stage, he was tall and lean but explosive. Desmond Evans still has a lot of room to continue to grow and fill out that frame, but the first step, explosiveness, the ability to use that length, the arm reach to be able to keep blockers off his frame, and then the range to be able to be disruptive and make plays. It took Chase Young, if you remember, a few years to kind of get his footing and turn into the dominant player that he is. But for Desmond Evans, I think he has a similar type trajectory when he gets to North Carolina to be an impact type player.
And you can't say enough how big of a recruiting win that was for Matt Brown and Tim Brewster at North Carolina. That's the guy Brewster zeroed in on. Clemson's hurt. North Carolina in the Tar Heel State in recruiting. They had to get Evans, and they did.
Yeah, they tried to get Trenton Simpson, unable to get him and keep him there in state. He goes to Clemson. There are going to be a record number of players announcing here. We've got 7 players announcing at Under Armour All-America game coming up on Thursday, including Darnell Washington, number 1 tight end. Look, there are some of these guys have already signed. They've already sent their letters in, but they're going to reveal their announcement coming up.
They are going to reveal their announcements, and you know what? The colleges have done a great job keeping it quiet. The kids have done and their circle has done a great job keeping it quiet. Do you have an idea where some of these guys may be leaning? Absolutely you do. Darnell Washington, one of those. He's been a Georgia lean for a long time. Tennessee made a run at it. Miami made a run at it. And we'll see what he ultimately decides. And, you look at Daniel Nagata, Elijah Badger out of Northern California, out of Folsom. Arizona State is the one school to kind of watch with them, but we'll see. Utah's in the picture. Oregon's in the picture as well.
So Chandler Morris, one of those guys that we saw on the screen, he is the son of former Arkansas head coach Chad Morris, now serving on Gus Malzahn's staff at Auburn. What kind of quarterback are we going to see out here this week?
We think recruiting can be confusing. He actually was an Arkansas committed at one point, and decommitted when his father was let go. So now he is back out there looking at several schools. And what's interesting about Chandler Morris is, from a measurable standpoint, he lacks a bit. He does not have great height. He doesn't have the type of bulk. But what he is a winner. He won a lot of football games at Highland Park, 2 state titles. You see the arm strength, the accuracy, plus being the son of a college football head coach, really a bright mind that Chad Morris is within the offensive scheme. He's got a great feel for the position and the game. So he may not be the biggest quarterback, but he's got it from the neck up, and he's also got the intangibles you want.
And Chandler Morris has been working with Kevin Murray, Kyler Murray's dad, since 6th, 7th grade. So he's been taught the game pretty well, like Kyler Murray was. Totally different player, but he's been taught from Kevin just like Kyler was.
Speaking of teaching, there's a lot of great teaching going on this week. It helps to have some NFL Hall of Famers, Pro Football Hall of Famers leading the way. Ed Reed doing that, third member of our crew, fourth member, I guess. Reenie and Goliath down on the field. Reenie.
Hey, guys, great stuff with Ed Reed, one of the best defensive players ever to play the game, period. One of the best football players ever to play the game, period. Head coach at Team Savage. First-year head coach. How's it been so far?
It's been awesome, man. I appreciate those flowers, man. It's been a blessing being out here with these kids, man. Should I say these young men? You know, just getting to learn, know them and try to coach them up. And being out here with the coaches, man, it's fun. You know, we're in Orlando.
So last night was the first practice. I was out here. I played high school about 30 years ago. You did too around that same time. Mm-hmm. Physically gifted, physically mature. I don't remember them being like that when we played high school.
Man, these kids are huge, man. You know, I don't know what's in the water. We just getting older and shrinking, you know. But it's awesome, man, seeing their abilities. You know, it brings you back. You know, it truly brings you back, man. And like I'm looking at Chad, I'm like, man, I know this guy.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously he's just like his dad, man, you know. So, you know, he's running routes just like him, man, and it's impressive, man, you know. So just being around guys like that.
Yeah, and that's Chad Johnson's son you're talking about.
Chad Johnson,
just like his dad, right?
Crazy.
Now, Deion Sanders is the coach for Team Pressure. He's around here somewhere. We'll track him down eventually.
He's warming up that 67 right
now. Is he giving you any tips or anything since he's coached here before and this is your first year?
He's telling me you know who's gonna win. That's what he told me so far, you know. So we keeping it fun, you know, we're keeping it simple for our kids, and we want them to show their abilities and fly around, you know. And Team Savage to get this thing.
Great stuff, Ed. Thank you.
No
Good
doubt,
luck,
man.
All right, guys, back to you.
Thank you, Reenie. Thanks, Ed, for the time. Again, this is a luxury for these kids. Deion Sanders, Ed Reed, just a couple of the coaches that we've got here this week.
Reggie Wayne working with the receivers on Ed Reed's team as well. So, I mean, a lot of great experience for these young men. And they told them after yesterday's practice, if you walk away with just one nugget to kind of put into your toolbox as a player, it's been a successful week.
Pretty remarkable talent, not only the high school level, but in the NFL level. Guys wearing some gold jackets and have bronze busts in Canton, helping these kids pave their way perhaps to that same level. A lot of high-level talent, and a lot of them reflected in the class rankings. We've got 7 players that have committed or signed to Clemson here. LSU's got 7 players here. Georgia's got 8 players here. And, oh, by the way, those are 2 of the top 5 classes in the class of 2020, Jerry.
Yeah, absolutely. That Clemson class is tremendous. What a great class of defensive linemen they have, Craig Hobart. DeMonte Capehart is the 3rd highest rated of those D linemen. He may have the most upside.
He reminds me a lot of Christian Wilkins, the former Clemson great defensive lineman. And I think what's interesting is you got Clemson at 1, Alabama with 20 ESPN 300 prospects sitting there at 2. Jerry, you mentioned with potentially Darnell Washington, Zach Evans, Georgia's a finalist for him as well. They could be a class to watch and maybe make a late run here over this last month.
Yeah, we've got 7 players that are going to announce with us on the Under Armour All-America game coming up on Thursday. One of those players is going to join us next. We've got Darnell Washington going to grace our set coming up. We'll see where he's going. Julian Fleming as well. He's the #1 overall player in the ESPN 300, the #1 wide receiver. He, along with Darnell Washington, these guys are stars of tomorrow. They'll sit with us next. Signed with Miami, had a legendary NFL career. Now he's mixing the 1s and the 2s here at Under Armour All-America Week. He can do it all. He can do it all right here. One of the head coaches here at Under Armour All-America Week. He was certainly one of the best defensive players in the history of the game. We've got 11 players ranked number 1 at their respective positions here this week. Most of them declared, some undeclared. See Julian Fleming there. He's the number 1 overall prospect. Darnell Washington, number 1 tight end. Both of them 5 stars, and both of them joining us here on the set here at Under Armour All-America Week. Julian, what is this? We'll start with you. What does this week mean to you? What are you trying to get out of it?
Anything, just getting ready for the next level, just prepare myself for the the next level of competition, like I said, and just eager to compete.
Darnell, what about you?
Just getting the knowledge of my stance or anything like that. We all been the guys in our high schools, and they brought all guys from all over. So I just want to prepare for the next level.
And as we were looking at that, some of the great names that have come before you and made their announcements on ESPN. Darnell, you're going to do that Thursday, make your announcement public at the Under Armour All-American Game. But take us through a little bit of the process, how you try to reach that decision, because there's a lot of factors for you involved in that.
Yeah, just going through it. It started my sophomore year. That's when it kind of took off. But everyone got a different route. Mine is different. I got a daughter and everything like that. So I got to look out what's best for both of us. Make sure she's straight, make sure I'm straight. So other people, they don't have that, so they just got to do what's best for them.
Julian, what about you? I mean, you obviously are signed, sealed, delivered for Ohio State. What was that process like for you?
It was long, it was stressful, but, I can't thank my family enough and my supporting cast. Constant support, constant love, and, that helped me make the decision I made.
You're going to be a part of an Ohio State program that is really churning out these wide receivers. Got to watch them in the college football playoff. What goes through your mind as you see them perform, and especially that position under Ryan Day?
It's great to see, just all the success they've had and all the receivers that have gone on to play at the next level. So, that's something I'm really excited for, especially to play under Coach Harline and Coach Day.
We want to just clarify that we did have to lower the seats for both of these guys here. They are not as tall as us. What are you, 6'7", 2 what? What are you?
Like 265.
Okay, they don't make people like you. You're listed as a tight end. You could do anything?
Yeah, from my high school, I did punter. I did almost everything, because I'm the guy, but.
What makes you so dangerous? I had a chance to talk to you about 2 weeks ago when we did a game out in Vegas. You summed it up beautifully, why you are so dangerous as a football player.
Corner's too small, linebacker's too slow.
There you go.
Put it like that.
That's what you call a matchup nightmare if you're a defensive coordinator. And you see the size. At what point did it just kind of click for you? You said your sophomore year is when you're recruiting, but was there a point before there where you said, you know what, I'm going to keep growing, but I'm going to maintain the athleticism to be a tight end?
I was just growing up. I wasn't always a tight end. I played quarterback, 8th grade, running back, 7th grade, receiver, freshman year, and I ended up started getting bigger, rapidly. And then that's when I just started transitioning to tight end. And, I just wanted to maintain that, my speed, everything I got, so to be the best tight end ever played the game.
So you have signed, but you haven't announced yet.
Yes,
You're going to be doing that on Thursday. What are some of the factors that went into that decision that we're going to learn here in a few days?
I think it's the best spot for me. Everyone's going to have negative things to say about where you go. But, if they look at it from my point of view, it's the best place to go for me.
Julian, how would you describe your skill set? What are Buckeye fans going to be seeing here next year?
Hopefully everything I can give them. I'm excited. I'm a little bit of a bigger receiver. I can still run a little bit. But, I'm just excited to get there and, showcase my skill set.
He's being humble. Listen, we just talked about Darnell and the matchup nightmares. Listen, you're sitting next to a guy who's 6'8", but for a wide receiver, you've got tremendous size. You're a tremendous athlete. That combination makes it very difficult. We're talking about a young man who is a 2-time Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Pennsylvania. Mine is a lot of Justin Ross because you see that size, but yet you're still so smooth, Julian. You got the soft hands, the ability after the catch. Another guy reminded me of, we saw that very first name pop up, Julio Jones, a big receiver. You create a lot of matchup problems as well. Talk about a little bit about some of the, the receivers that you watch, and How do the DBs try to cover you? What can anybody do to stop you?
I mean, with DBs I watch, I try to mix and match. So I like to watch bigger wide receivers. I like to watch smaller wide receivers just to stay well-rounded. Because, bigger are usually burners, faster possession receivers, and the smaller guys are the technicians. And, I like to be well-rounded. So I'm trying to fix some routes up at the same time, being able to still run deep. And DBs usually, during my seasons, they put, DB on me and then safety over the top or the backer they brought out. So it just depends if it was 2 or 3 people. But, it's just finding ways to get open and wherever that quarterback can put the ball, hopefully having the best chance to make a play.
Looking forward to college, maybe a little single coverage?
Oh, yeah, definitely looking forward to one-on-one coverage. I still got a lot to work on, though, so it's going to be a process.
By the way, I think Ohio State fans want to know, was that a fumble the other night in the college football playoff game? Was that a fumble? You played receiver, and it was an Ohio State defensive back who knocked it out, so you're kind of torn here.
If I think about it, I thought it was a catch and a fumble. But the game's over at this point. It hurt. It did hurt that night, but, you just got to get past it, and, I think everybody's excited for next season.
Spoken like a guy who's already on the team. Number 1 overall prospect, Julian Fleming. Top 10 prospect, Darnell Washington. We have seen some other top 10 players, number 1 players, I should say, be here as well. Number 1 draft picks as well. Kayvon Thibodeau could be headed that way. Justin Fields just played in the playoff. Rashawn Gary was a first-round pick. Leonard Fournette as well. Jadeveon Clowney, a number 1 pick. Julian Fleming joining that list. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Sorry we got you out of practice. Enjoy it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Julian Fleming and Darnell Washington, 2 of our 5-star prospects here. They will be getting on the pads, the helmets, and getting set to go here in a matter of moments. Under Armour All-America Week rolls on. Bud Foster with a tough test in his final game. Hokies against Kentucky in the Belk Bowl at noon Eastern. Then it's Navy and K-State in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl. And at 7:30 Eastern, the Valero Alamo Bowl between number 11 Utah and the Texas Longhorns, featuring former Under Armour All-American wideout Devin Duvernay. Matt Schick, Craig Hobart, Jerry Hamilton, Tom Luganville out here with the Under Armour All-America practices now set for the individual skill positions session. Tom, good to have you back on the set, my friend.
Good to be back, boys.
Yes.
Yes.
Year number 13 of the Under Armour All-America game. We heard from these 2 guys about why this week is important. You've covered this game for many years. What's this week all about?
I think it's about competition and measuring yourself against your peers when it's not easy. And now all of a sudden you've got good versus good, great versus great. And then more importantly, in this era that we're in where guys aren't playing in bowl games and they're deciding to sit, when you have an opportunity to come out and do this and prepare yourself for the next level so you truly know what you're getting into. I know Craig's touched on this before, how often we find that these kids will come back a year and a half, 2 years after and say, that week was the most important week to prepare me for what I was getting into versus what I thought I was getting into.
Yeah, and we talk about, again, guys not playing in bowl games. 36 early enrollees this year. That's a number that continues to rise in recruiting nowadays. So for those 36 guys, this is a great test 1 or 2 weeks before you go off to college. And you start becoming a man. And this is a great test for you to prepare yourself and face the adversities.
You see these linebackers here. We're seeing number 11, Phillip Webb. And if you take a look at these guys as a group, he's the longest, probably most physically impressive guy. The thing that's interesting is in watching the playoff this past week and watching Isaiah Simmons and seeing what the defensive side of the football has become for linebackers, you've got to be able to stay on the field all the time. You've got to be able to be scheme versatile. I don't think anybody's going to be able to play safety like Isaiah Simmons can, but you see the range and the stature of these guys. It's about how you can stay on the field on every down.
Webb he's got broad shoulders.
Yeah.
Like he's 210, but he's going to
headed
easily
to
be a mobile 240.
Yeah.
And you watch him on tape, his first step explosive. You want to talk about a young man who can get off the spot. His ability to close on the ball carrier is impressive. I mean, he's a sideline.
Well, he could be a designated pass rusher as well.
Oh, off the edge?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, with that first step explosive, and we just saw him now. They're working a little bit of just coverage drills. He's got that versatility, as you mentioned, Tom, that 3-down versatility.
And one more thing on Webb. You want to talk about momentum in recruiting. LSU goes into Georgia and gets Phillip Webb and Eric Gilbert.
Right.
I don't think they do that a year ago. Now, they've had success in Georgia, but that's the momentum they have in recruiting right now.
Talk about recruiting and momentum. We also saw number 22, in Trenton Simpson there. It looked like North Carolina might be able to close that deal and get the in-state kid out of Charlotte, North Carolina, and then Clemson offers, and he signs right away.
That was one of the bigger heartbreakers for a staff in this cycle in recruiting Trenton Simpson, because Clemson waited until they knew they weren't getting Justin Flo to offer Trenton Simpson.
Imagine that luxury.
Oh, yeah. It's great to select.
Bring him in on the last visit.
We just select now.
Well, they did the same thing with Travis Etienne.
Yeah.
They needed a running back late.
Right.
You know,
LSU didn't
who's out
offer
there?
him.
Who's out there?
Yeah. And so Simpson, he says Clemson was the school I always wanted to go to. I appreciate and love the North Carolina staff. But see, Trenton Simpson's from Georgia. He's not from the state of North Carolina. So that's a little caveat in that recruitment. He didn't grow up in the Tar Heel State with the pressure of playing for North Carolina.
It's
Former
a good,
Auburn commit.
It's a good example of that. Recruiting is a marathon, not a sprint. Because you think that, hey, we've got this guy, we're getting him close to the finish line, and then you get very close, and then all of a sudden a quick left turn happens, and now he's signed with Clemson.
Let's take a right turn to Reaney down on the field. Hey, buddy.
Yeah, well, I'm with these linebackers, guys, and I'm listening to you talk, and it's just unbelievable, the size and athleticism. I mean, 20 years ago, the size of these guys, Philip Webb, he was an offensive lineman, you know, a big offensive tackle. And the length, you talked about his length, and you're right. He can be an outside edge rusher, 9 technique, put his hand on the ground, and he's a nightmare for an offensive tackle, but he's athletic enough to get back into coverage and play that outside linebacker position. So it's just uniquely qualified are these young men at their positions with their athleticism. It's just unbelievable watching them in person.
One of the young men not over there is Savell Smalls, a 5-star linebacker. He's trying to cross-train a little bit. Linebackers, obviously, you get into an All-America setting, they can't blitz. And I think Smalls wants this opportunity to get after the quarterback a little bit, so he's cross-training with the defensive ends. But he's another guy, tremendous athleticism, the ability to play in space, to be able to cover running backs out of the backfield.
And there, you see number 12, Curtis Jacobs, also in that linebacker group. He's just out of the picture right now. All our Under Armour camps around the country last year, seeing Jacobs right here, he was the best guy in coverage at any Under Armour camp I went to. He was so natural dropping, and his ball skills were off the charts. I think he's going to play early at Penn State, Luke.
I do too. And listen, if you watch Penn State on defense and you see how they've integrated some of those tweener linebacker edge guys like a Micah Parsons, they've done a really good job getting those guys involved early and showcasing them. I think that what's happened now is everybody at the linebacker position, everybody's in so much nickel, and you're trying to figure out, all right, do we have a guide where we don't have to go to nickel? Do we have a guy that could stay on the field the entire time? And I keep reiterating that because the more you watch these spread offenses in the tempo, if the offense doesn't sub, you're going to be stuck with that personnel on the field, and that personnel better be able to hold up.
Great point. Jacobs is a 3-down linebacker.
It's the versatility at every position. You're a quarterback, you got to be able to throw, and you have to be able to run. You want to be a running back, helps to be able to be a third down back as well, and be on the field every down of the game. We also saw Jalen McCluster there, the number 24 linebacker on the other team, team pressure for Florida State. Now we're on Team Savage. These linebackers as well, no shortage of talent.
Wesley Steiner, he can call a defense, really intelligent kid, really instinctive football player, came down to Auburn, Stanford. I love the defensive class Auburn signed Luke and Bill.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they lose a lot on the defensive line, on defense in general.
But they're going to be loaded at linebacker
they are
over the next 2 to 3
loaded
years.
at linebacker with Owen Papot, Steiner, and the other 4 guys they signed.
Steiner, I mean, it's explosive. He had a 40-inch vertical jump. Look at that lower body.
He is sawed off, dude. Look at him.
I mean, and we talk about that ability, once again, to stay on the field. I mean, that sideline-to-sideline type range, and that's actually, for as thickly built as he is, he's actually a guy who's at his best kind of scraping along the line, staying off blocks, and I think he's going to be able to kind of grow into that role, too, where he can kind of be a downhill kind of just banger as well against that inside run game. But, yeah, he kind of leads that defensive group. It's a really strong class. I mean, I think Gus Malzahn kind of very quietly came into the year on a hot seat and then won some big games and put together a top 10 class, and I think deserves a lot of credit for what he has been able to accomplish.
Top 10 class of great defensive players. That class is going to win them a lot of games on defense.
Ladarius Tennyson, Auburn as well, with the defensive backs. He's part of that Auburn class. Here's Mikhail Sherman, 4-star, number 1 inside linebacker in the class of 2020. Signed with Georgia, committed back in May. And, look, they're pretty deep there, that position. But he says, look, they rotate, and I think I'm going to get on the field.
Well, yeah, first of all, you don't ever want a player who's worried about the depth chart. You want guys who are willing to come in and compete. When you're looking at Mikhail Sherman out of St. John's College in D.C., We talk about those versatility guys. Now, he tore his ACL as a junior, came back as a senior to kind of get back into the flow of things. They put him at defensive end. He put his hand down. He could certainly do that. Pass rush off the edge. There you see he's still working with the knee brace, but it's been over a year now. Moving back, feeling comfortable. He moved back to linebacker later in the season. But he has got, I mean, you want to talk about a guy with size, 6'2", 233 pounds who can run. I mean, tremendous frame and size. And you know, one of the things, too, you look for in these young men is Wesley Steiner sitting next to him. We talked about it, Tom, at the top, the intangibles. Talking to some of the support people here at Under Armour, they raved about Wesley, what a type of kid he is. Thank you, please. And those are the little things that matter is see Georgia's class apart that Kyle Sherman is.
And when you look at Georgia's class, when you say who has the longest runway remaining with 80%, almost 80% of kids signed, as far as class ranking, it's Georgia. You got Darnell Washington, Zach Evans announcing with us at the Under Armour game. Look, if Georgia happened to win both of those battles, that's 2 5-stars. Then there's Keely Ringo, another 5-star, close to 5-star, out there with the decision to make as well. So Georgia has a pretty long runway in this recruiting class.
And I go back to a comment that Kirby Smart made right when he took the job because, first of all, Georgia's a great state in terms of talent.
Yes.
You're also having to ward off all of your competitors,
Everybody,
right?
from every direction.
From every direction. So everybody says to Kirby Smart, you got to keep the Georgia kids at home. You got to keep them. You can't keep them all at home. It's impossible. But what you do have to do, though, is make sure that the ones you choose to target and keep pan out. You can't have guys that you recruited and signed fizzle out while a Trevor Lawrence, a Deshaun Watson, a Von Bell, or whoever it may
Justin
be.
Fields now.
Justin Fields, Montravius Adams, a number of them go somewhere else and are difference makers. That's the challenge for Georgia.
And going out of state to Maryland to get a kid like Sherman, that's a good thing as well. Under Armour All-America Week continues, and a lot of these guys will be contributing perhaps in the college football playoff. The Tigers coming up in the national championship game. You look at the Under Armour All-Americans, class of 2020. Yeah, LSU's got 7 more coming in the fold. Clemson with 9 Under Armour All-Americans. Oklahoma with 4. Ohio State adding a few as well. So the stars of today here on the field could be certainly contributing and helping teams on a path to the national championship coming up as soon as next year. Quarterback position, according to reports, a very important one in
That's
college,
the rumor.
in college football. And we've got some real good ones here. You see Texas A&M, Texas, Georgia Tech, Jeff Sims as well, Robbie Ashford, Pac-12, the Big 12. Take a look at them, all of them next. Quarterback straight ahead. Burn in the Outback Bowl on ESPN. On ABC, former Under Armour All-American running back Zach Charbonnet and Michigan taking on Nick Saban's Alabama Crimson Tide in the Citrus Bowl in Orlando. We'll give you options with the ESPN app. Bo Nix, of course, part of last year's Under Armour All-America game and then went to Auburn's campus, wound up winning the starting quarterback job and led them to a fine season. How about Kayvon Thibodeau, the number 1 player in the ESPN 300, was an Under Armour All-American last year and certainly paid dividends in Eugene this year. Jane Daniels got the Sun Bowl coming up tomorrow against Florida State. What a season he had for Herm Edwards, former head coach here at Under Armour All-America Week. So it can happen very quickly. From 1 year, you're here at Under Armour All-America Week, and then the next year, you're impacting the college game. Speaking of guys who've impacted the college game and NFL game, let's take a look at Mic'd Up, presented by Under Armour.
When he was with them dogs, Jerry Rice, come on, John Taylor, them boys, man. But I grew up watching playmakers like Prime, right? Charles Woodson. Those guys came before me. True stuff.
Ed was a corner playing safety.
Ray no. Ray is like, no, little bro, stay in safety.
Playing safety, and that's what it was. That's why the ball skills, the punt return ability, the punt block ability, complete.
But that's what you did in special teams.
They don't make DBs like
use that state. See, growing up, I was a State fan. I didn't already broadcast that, but y'all ain't recruit me, ain't send me a note. All good. It worked out perfect. Right? We both got national championships, Super Bowls, all. We good.
100.
Right.
We get 100. Yeah.
That's it right there.
Forget the 100.
Yeah.
Now, it's another league. It's another team I want. I say, forget the 100.
Mm-hmm.
I want the 22 within the 100.
That's it.
That's the
Who started? Who started? Yeah.
We
need We need,
understand that. It's a privilege and a pleasure.
Yeah,
But
no
now
doubt.
we need the 22.
Who's going in first?
Who's
starting the game?
Who's starting?
Who don't y'all knocking on
Who's
first?
starting?
Hey, send Prime out here, please,
what I'm
Miss Sanders.
That's what I'm
Can he
talking
come play football today? Because I know I'm knocking on your door.
That's what I'm talking about.
Prime, you can play today.
Yeah. We want to know who's the 22.
Who's the 22 is
100.
next. That's next, no doubt.
That's next.
Yeah,
That's next.
no doubt.
That's next.
No doubt.
That's next.
Have a good day, big bro.
Mic'd up, presented by Under Armour. Look, that is. It's never enough for these legends, right? You name one of the 100 greatest players in NFL. You
got to get the 2D.
You want to be in the starting 22.
That's a competitive drive. That's how you wind up amongst the top one, having tremendous athletic ability. But that drive to be like 100's not enough. I want to know, am I starting?
And then Ed Reed and Reggie Wayne were college roommates. How much talent in the dorm room at Miami? I mean, those guys were roommates. It's unbelievable how they pushed each other to be great, even though they were on separate teams after college.
You know, it's interesting. They were kidding with each other in relationship to not making corners like us anymore. You know, Deion talking about Ed Reed was a safety with corner skills. So guess what? He never came off the field. He matched up with everybody that was on the field. Tight ends, slots, you name it, he stayed on the field. We've talked about that with some of these youngsters here in terms of the evolution of the game and how the game has changed, that now we're asking more of these players in terms of playing in space, tackling, all of these different things that it's so challenging in today's game. You got player safety, right? It's hard to practice tackling because you're wanting to keep everybody healthy and upright. But then you go out on the field and they're spreading you wide, they're spreading you vertical, and everybody says, well, we got to tackle that guy. Well, it's not that easy. The guys who can do it are special.
And you know what's amazing about Ed Reed? We're part of Ray Lewis Academy, Linebacker Academy, and Ed Reed and Ray were down there breaking down film and talking about film study and how important that was to them going on to be Hall of Fame players. And watching them break it down for the kids was amazing.
Well, it's the little things that make you great. Because we talked about it. You're now one of the best players in the country. Are you going to do the little things that are going to separate you? Because we already heard from Rini where Ed Reed got after one player who felt he wasn't going through a route hard enough. That's the thing. Are you going to push yourself every play? Because when you are amongst the best, talent is not enough. No. What other things are you going to do to push yourself forward? And those are two guys, and Deion Sanders and Ed Reed, that always took care of the little things. May have had big personalities in a sense of prime time, but he always took care of the little things, attention to details, worked hard, great work ethic, and those are the things they're trying to instill in these players. Talent is not enough.
We talk about it all the time. It's a talent maximization contest. You can say, I'm going to maximize my talent, but do you understand how to do it?
Well, what it takes to do it.
What it takes to do it.
Well, I got a couple of coaches there. You saw Ed Reed and Deion Sanders, who were experts in maximizing their talent and then some, leading these teams here this week at Under Armour All-America Week. Let's look in on the quarterbacks for Team Savage. Again, Team Savage and Team Pressure are the two teams labeled here with different uniforms and helmets here. You see Robbie Ashford, the Oregon commit, top 10 pocket passer in our ESPN 300.
6 quarterbacks in the game. Robbie Ashford's the only one not enrolling early. The reason for that is he's a projected 5th to 7th round in the Major League Baseball draft headed into his senior season. I talked to him on check-in day, and he said if he's in the top 3 rounds, it's going to be a very difficult decision whether he goes to play college football or not. If he keeps in that 5 to 7 range, he probably goes to Oregon.
There's a former Ole Miss commit, decommitted after Matt Luke was fired.
Baseball will be a factor if he does go to Oregon. Going to play both sports. He's an outfielder.
There's Haynes King we're looking at there. Father John King, head coach at Longview, coaching tight ends in the game. Won their first state title in 81 years, Haynes' junior season. Headed to Texas A&M. He's enrolling January 7th. He went and watched bowl practice with his dad. And what did John King say? You know what? Jimbo's just like me. He's going to be hard on my kid, and he's got to be.
Multi-sport kid as well. Basketball player, track, 4x400 relay. Yeah,
can't stress that enough.
Well, we talked about it with
athlete.
Ashford. Plays baseball, and you've got King who plays basketball. I mean, people watch this week. Oh, these guys are football. No, that's not all that they do, and it shouldn't be all that they do.
I called a Longview game this year, and I talked to his dad. And he said, "I don't know what you're going to play, but you're going to play track because you're going to compete, and on the track, there's nowhere to hide."
Right.
You know, you're going to have to prove yourself.
It's like wrestling with linemen. Yeah. You see Drew Pine there. He's signed with Notre Dame, and he's very similar to Ian Book. He's got a stronger arm, so I think he's going to be able to be capable of making a few more plays down the field, maybe into some tighter windows. And I want to go back to what you guys are saying with all of the quarterbacks, whether it's Team Pressure, whether it's Team Savage. Don't get yourself overtrained by committing to be the most physically or technically sound, impressive quarterback because that's all you do every single day. All that makes you is a tapped out product. Coaches want to see how you integrate yourself with other kids, other skill sets. How do you respond to coaching in different sports in different manners? And at the quarterback position, I can't tell you. And I think it's true for all positions, but the quarterback position, if you're a basketball player, play basketball. Maybe that's not going to be your college sport. If you're going to run track. Do something that gives you a different skill set than somebody else.
There are so many things in those other sports also that translates to the sport of football as well.
Well, and that's the thing. So Haynes King is the star quarterback, leads Longview to a state championship in football. He comes off the bench in basketball, so he learns he's a leader on the football field. He's a teammate on the basketball court, in the locker room. How important is that to know both of those roles?
No doubt. I tell you, I love what you said about his dad talking about Jimbo Fisher coaching him hard, because I'm going to tell you right now,
it's going to be.
If you're going to play quarterback for Jimbo Fisher, you are going to be coached hard. You better have a thick skin. There's going to be a high standard that you're going to be expected to meet, and it ain't going to be, rainbows and unicorns all the time.
And Haynes King recruitment came down to A&M and Tennessee, and Haynes and his father both said the toughest call they ever had to make was to Tennessee to tell him no. He backed up that decision. He kept backing it up before he finally decided on Texas A&M. He had a great relationship with Chris Winkie at Tennessee, and he almost went to Knoxville.
Look at Texas A&M's class sitting there at number 7. Again, the late signing period still to come in February. Haynes King was the number 3 dual threat quarterback in the ESPN 300. And that A&M class, again, the SEC peppering that top 10, and A&M one of those.
And A&M's, I believe they're going to recruit top 10 classes as long as Jimbo's in College Station. The key is going to be how are they going to build that offensive line at the tackle position. Right. It's one thing to have a top 10 class, but are they meeting all those needs, getting to where they have to when you're Alabama, Auburn, and LSU on the schedule every year?
Well, that's just the problem. Well, Alabama, LSU, Auburn, and then they get, 2 years in a row they've had Clemson out of conference.
And Georgia.
Yeah, so you can have a top 10 class. Do you maximize that to steal a win against LSU, to steal a win versus Auburn, to get yourself in the mix down the stretch to potentially go to Atlanta? Yeah, Texas A&M has every available resource to be a premier program in college football. They have one of the most difficult paths to overcome in order to get there.
You can have a top 10 class and the 5th best in the SEC. That's kind of how it works. We're looking here at team pressure, O-line versus D-line here, Hubbard. This is where you live.
Yeah, the big guys getting after it. Obviously, for offensive linemen, a little bit tough because they know that defensive lineman has no run responsibilities. They're pinning that ear back to get upfield, but it's about that one-on-one. Are you going to keep your feet moving? Are you going to keep your knees bent? Can you get a good punch, get your hands inside, try to control that defensive lineman?
There you look at a defensive line. Obviously, Desmond Evans, number 2 player in the country. We spoke about that earlier. Huge recruiting win for North Carolina. If there was a program that absolutely had to win and get the top prospect in their state, it was Mack Brown getting Desmond Evans his first full class, and they did that, and they fought off everybody in the country.
Well, look at the frame. Look at the length, the physical upside that he has, that first step explosiveness. We talked about it at the top, the comparisons to kind of a young Chase Young out of DeMatha High School went on to obviously become a disruptive force for Ohio State this year.
Look at his arm. He puts his hand down in the ground, and he's still 3.5 feet off the ground.
Well, and that's we're talking about how physically developed a lot of these guys are. Evans is actually the opposite. He's got a really long runway physically in front of him.
That's a little ACC preview there. You've got Desmond Evans to North Carolina facing offensive tackle Walker Parks, number 64 there, who's going to Clemson.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about an athletic frame and an offensive lineman. It's just a great athlete. You see the feet. See how he's just staying under control. He never overcommitted. He's going to make Desmond Evans try to have to get outside or inside and commit, but he just never gave Desmond Evans an easy go. A lot of offensive line coaches will tell you if a defensive lineman wins, it's because an offensive lineman did something wrong. There, Walker Parks is doing really good feet, staying under control.
I think what impressed me about Walker Parks yesterday and today in those reps, he's got the body quickness to play tackle, right?
Oh,
you watch the film, then when you see him in person, how does that body react to things that move really fast with these great athletes in front of him? And Walker Parks has more than held his own.
So Quillen Roy
has had a great couple of days.
LSU's the number 6 defensive tackle, and a little bit of a bull rush there.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm not going around you. I'm just going to go through you. Yeah, one of the things, though, I like, he's explosive and really active with his hands. For young defensive linemen, those are your best tools to get those hands. You see that working, Andy, but a really nice job there hanging in there. It's obviously a little bit slippery. It was a little wet last night.
That's kind of what LSU did to Oklahoma the other night. That's Nathan Anderson.
Poor Nathan Anderson worked his way into that one.
The Oklahoma signee on the offensive line there.
We talk about guys that move up at these events. Jacqueline Roy is going to be one for us already in a day and a half. We've watched him yesterday, just dominant. Like you said, he's ahead technically, and then when you look at the body and the first step quickness, that kid's he's a mover with us.
LSU with a top 5 class. Mentioned Eric Gilbert.
Roy, obviously a key in-state pickup, but LSU showing a lot of national reach with what they were able to do. We talked about some of the players that have been going into Georgia and getting Philip Webb.
Yeah, Tom, we talked about this on radio. Eric Gilbert out of Atlanta, Georgia, does not go to LSU a year ago. The change offensively in the season they had in showing how they can get the ball to the playmakers
and
finally.
Thaddeus Moss.
Not matriculating the ball down the field any longer is huge in recruiting.
You know, we talk about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We talk about the wideouts, Joe Burrow at LSU. Thaddeus Moss is one of the unsung heroes of the offense because it allowed them to isolate him because everybody's so worried about the guys on the outside. So great recruiting tool if you're LSU there when you're recruiting the tight end position.
O-line, D-line. Miles Murphy. There's headed to North Carolina with that nice pass rush. Again, look at the college football playoff teams and their rankings. Again, Ohio State at 16 there last year. It's more of a numbers play than anything.
Yeah, with Ryan Day coming in as the head coach, the short window there.
And even Clemson there with 10, they did a great job at retention.
Yes.
They were signing top 10 classes while signing the fewest amount of players.
They retain players, they retain coaches. No one wants to leave.
They don't really take part in the transfer portal. They don't need to. Their guys aren't leaving. They don't need to bring anybody in.
Again, Miles Murphy, we talked about Desmond Evans. 2 of the top 3 players in the state of North Carolina signed with Mack Brown and the Tar Heels, and that is such a huge win.
Well, it's a huge win because, number one, the state is oversaturated with universities. 4 Power 5 schools within an hour of each other, okay? It's also not an allegiant state where a kid comes out of the womb and says, I'm going to Alabama or I'm going to Auburn. It's predominantly become a basketball state. So what's happened? The Alabamas, the Clemsons, the Virginia Techs, the Marylands, they've all come into that state and they've continually raided it. Now, all of a sudden, Mack Brown comes back in and he's putting a fence around it and giving them a reason to stay at home.
And really, Clemson's the only team that's beaten them on the top guys head-to-head in that state in this class. Georgia, I think, will be a threat in the future along with Clemson. But if there's anybody that can keep them home, it's Mack Brown.
Got to look at Jason Harris there, who's one of the 7 players who's going to be announcing with us during the Under Armour All-America game. He's down to Arizona, Indiana, Colorado, and UCLA. He's a top 15 defensive end, a 4-star out of the state of Arizona.
And what's interesting about Harris is he was a basketball kid all the way up, in his mind even, until this season. He told Harris told me on check-in day, I'm actually going to focus on football, and I'm not looking to play college basketball. I was actually a little surprised by that, Craig Halbert, because he's a guy he's got Division I basketball offers. He's got a high ceiling in football, but now that he's going to focus solely on football, what can he become?
Yeah, because, he is tall and lean, and the ability just to focus on football, to spend time in the strength and conditioning program is going to do him wonders to be able to continue to fill out that frame. He is so long, can cover a lot of ground. You see they're trying to work the hands, the ability to be able to run down quarterbacks, and then obviously when you're that tall, the ability to disrupt throwing lanes. You can get to the quarterback, but if you can't get there, you get those hands up, can really make things difficult there. As you see, he forced the quarterback to have to put the football down right there. So you're right. It's the best Jason Harris we have not seen yet. There is still a high ceiling for that young man.
Under Armour All-America Week practices continue here in Lake Buena Vista, Florida. ESPN Wide World of Sports Complex, more than 90 of the ESPN 300 are here for Under Armour All-America Week. Under Armour All-America game coming up January 2nd, day after New Year's. That's quick math. That's on ESPN 2. Under Armour All-America Week practices leading up to that game on January 2nd. Again, more than 90 of the best high school seniors here that will be coming to college campuses near you. We got some one-on-one drills, going on right now. We got Team Pressure and Team Savage right now. Team Savage, one-on-one, wide receivers and defensive backs. We talked to Julian Fleming earlier on set, number 1 overall player, number 1 wide receiver. He's there in the top part of your screen as he just ran a route. How would you describe the wide receivers here in this class?
Well,
Craig
some
Hubbard?
familiar names right now going number 85, and the 85 of the Ocho Cinco, that's actually Chad Johnson Jr., Jerry Rice's son, Brendan Rice, number 80, he is also out there as well. So some familiar names there to make us feel old as we sit here on the set.
There is Chad Johnson, again, heading to Arizona State and Herm Edwards.
Talented young man. He's got his dad's swagger as well. Not afraid to tell you that he's got the ability.
Will he put on the Hall of Fame jacket, the gold jacket, during the Under Armour game?
Wait, we got the swag locker coming back tomorrow. We'll see if it's in there.
Again, we'll be catching passes from Jaden Daniels, who starred in this game last year, Tom Luganbill. And Jaden Daniels, he was about 170 pounds when he played in this game.
He's about 172
He's
now.
about 172 now, but you know what? You can't coach anything that guy's got.
No. Yeah, Herm's got himself a roster that's starting to develop there, and they're going to have almost everybody back on both sides of the ball. But certainly the quarterback, wide receiver position, and watching this one-on-one drill, I can't help but go back to the Peach Bowl between Oklahoma and we've got somebody down. Theo Johnson, I think, the big tight end.
Penn State tight end. Yeah, and again, these injuries can happen. It's a slippery
track.
Slippery track today, a little damp, and Ed Reed possibly looking for some help. Again, he is Theo Johnson, one of the top tight ends here in this class, signed with Penn State from Canada.
And talking to Theo on check-in day, I said, what position did you play growing up? He said, I was an offensive lineman and safety. I said, how the heck does that happen?
Well, Canada.
yeah, that's how it happens. And there he's a little right shoulder injury.
Let's go to Rini Angolia, who saw it firsthand. Rini, what happened with Theo?
John, the big tight end, just running a little corner route, was up against a smaller DB. Jordan Tolles just kind of grabbed him when he came out of the break. And the big tight end, Johnson, just went down, kind of holding that shoulder. So hopefully he's okay, but getting after it out here in practice.
Rini Angolia, part of our crew here, former NFL player as well. Theo Johnson, hoping that's the path that he has, but a little bit sidetracked here for the moment with that injury.
One of the things, and going back to what I was referencing with the Peach Bowl, watching these one-on-ones and seeing how LSU attacked Oklahoma and what Oklahoma did defensively, when they would rotate their safeties to the middle of the field, they ended up leaving a matchup between the slot receiver, which was either Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, Terrace Marshall, matched up against a safety one-on-one on the hash mark, which is exactly what the inside slots are doing here. You're going to have safeties coming over the slots. They're going to be matched up in man-to-man coverage versus slot receivers, which is such a huge challenge and oftentimes a big mismatch, which is, again, why it's so important that your safeties can cover and stay on the field.
And moving down here a little bit closer, obviously working on some red zone passes here. Obviously the field shrinks a little bit, Tom. That means those windows shrink a little bit as well. And I think for these quarterbacks, too, now they're facing a group of DBs with the ability to close and stick with their receivers that they're probably not used to at the high school level and during their normal regular season.
You better mind your timing. You better mind anticipation because, as you referenced, the window's going to close, and it's not going to be that big to begin with.
Again, another look at Brendan Rice, son of Jerry Rice. Says he wants to be recognized not just as Jerry Rice's son, wants to be recognized as Brendan Rice, but he does pick number 80.
Yeah, well, it may have been a sign.
Okay. It may not have been his
80
choice.
and 85 are no mistake. I can tell you. I'm going to let you peek behind the curtain. That was no mistake. But you're right. It's tough for those young men to be in that shadow. Another one out here is E.J. Smith, son of Emmett Smith, and he's wearing number 22. And but these guys, I mean, they have the opportunity to certainly kind of build their own legacies. But, listen, they come from great bloodlines, and there's a lot to be able to pull from, to be able to learn from their fathers. And E.J. Smith did a great job last night in a one-handed catch contest. I mean, his hands are phenomenal. Could play wide receiver, could play DB. E.J. Smith, he's on the other team, Team Pressure.
really nice of you guys to let them escape their father's shadow by putting their father's numbers on their back.
Dazzling Worsham. Going to be an early enrollee at Miami here. Going to report in about a week.
Dazzling Worsham, again, the 4-star wideout. Signed with Miami, top 300 prospect out of the state of Alabama.
Yeah, out of Trustville, initially an Alabama commit, decommitted, and Miami was a leader for a while, and right before signing period, decided to go ahead and sign with the Hurricanes. He's out-of-state pickup for Miami.
And that was in that play. That was Avante Williams with the coverage, #1 safety in the country. Avante Williams was a long-time Oregon commitment, backed out of that commitment, and he's going to visit Ole Miss in Florida late in January, so we'll see if he stays home at the end of the day.
See what happened here with Worsham.
Came down awkward.
Yeah, tried to extend as he was hitting the ground, and as you mentioned, just there was no way for him to kind of brace himself as he fell, but looks like he's walking off.
Saw Theo Johnson go down, the Penn State signee. Now Worsham, the Miami signee, with a little bit of a nick there. We'll see if he returns to practice today. Now a little bit of a break. Again, hydration is key here, even without a sunshiny day.
Well, even last night with just no pads on, just helmets, these guys are excited to get out here and compete. And they're going full tilt, really pushing themselves. And first time for us. Some of these guys just got done with state playoff runs. Some of these guys haven't played in a month. They're excited to be back out on the field.
Absolutely.
They're not going to leave anything out there.
Oh, we heard from Ed Reed and Deion Sanders earlier, the two head coaches. Steve Mariucci used to be one of the head coaches here. Now he's got a different role. He's still here, though, and he's with Rini Angolia.
Here with Coach Steve Mariucci. Now, not coaching, you're the GM this year of the game, correct?
Well, I don't know if it's GM or commissioner. There's one of the two titles. I'm trying to figure out which one. Or groundskeeper. I don't know what I'm doing, but it's so much fun watching these guys. Another great crop of kids. Maybe the best ever. We'll see. And a lot of good coaches. Some of these coaches, a lot of these coaches have played in the National Football League. And so these kids are really benefiting from their experience. And a lot of these guys, heck, they're asking for autographs half the time with some of these guys like Ed Reed.
Well, it's unbelievable because you brought up a great point. I was watching Team Savage, which is Ed Reed's team. Oh, by the way, Reggie Wayne, the wide receiver coach, and one of the receivers ran a little 9 route, and he just kind of lollygagged through it, dropped the ball. And Ed Reed and Ed and Reggie both got on him and said, make every rep count. So is that something all these kids are all-stars, right? They were all great at their teams, but they come here, and now they're about to go to big-time programs.
This week, these 5 days are not just about playing in this game or practicing in this game and running some offense that they haven't run before. There's so many life lessons that these coaches will impart on these guys about how to practice, how to treat everybody over there in the cafeteria, how to live their lives off the field, in the classroom, on campus when they go there next year. So these guys they have a voice, and they've been all successful, right? Yeah. They know how to do it, so they're going to try to make sure that these kids have the best opportunity to be successful and not screw it up, do all the right things.
Great stuff. Thank you, Coach. It's going to be a great week.
Let's have some fun, baby.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mooch. Coming up next, got some quarterbacks in the Big 12, the ACC as well. We'll check in on the quarterbacks for team pressure. Straight ahead.
Starting to hit his stride with about 3 games to go in the regular season, and he will admittedly tell you, I didn't realize when I got on campus what all I was going to have to know that had nothing to do with physical ability. And that's what took some time, and he is going to be an absolute animal.
He didn't start the first half of the season.
Right.
He's still got double-digit sacks.
I know.
That's crazy.
One of those great California kids who got out of the state and went to Oregon. Mario Cristobal continues to
second year in a row they've signed the number 1 player out of California.
Well, everybody's leaving California. I mean, look, if you look at the top 25 guys in the state of California, you got to get to 25 before somebody committed to UCLA or USC.
Yeah. Look at an offensive line and defensive line here for Team Savage, some great names to know here. Chris Braswell committed to Alabama, 5-star.
DeMonte Capehart, who's signed with Clemson, number 2 ranked defensive tackle in the country. He reminds me a lot of another former Under Armour All-American and a Clemson great, Christian Wilkins, because he has the size and the agility. He can kind of work those double moves. He can be very versatile how you use him along the defensive line. He's been off to a really good start. There's a young man who a lot of eyes are on, Jordan Birch, committed to South Carolina on the first day of the early signing period, but actually has not signed yet. So while he is committed, there's still the opportunity to be an interesting month to watch.
Has he signed it and held it in a drawer somewhere under lock and key?
Chris Braswell there, the Alabama signee.
Going to be an early enrollee, going to head to Tuscaloosa here in a few days. Probably going to play that outside rush linebacker position at Alabama, and I think that fits his game to a T.
He reminds me a lot of LSU's Calebon Chasen.
Yes.
He's tall, long, and lean. Deceptively powerful, though, for his build.
Great comparison.
Quick first step. And now you mentioned kind of work into that kind of a hybrid role.
Yeah, this defensive line as a whole, I really like this group. Obviously, Birch, one 5-star defensive end. Capehart, that Clemson has a great defensive line class. In
Shocking.
Capehart. Yeah,
it's really
shocking.
stunning to hear.
Yeah, 2 years later after the other great defensive line class. Capehart's interesting to me because he's the 3rd highest rated defensive lineman in the class, but he may have the highest ceiling of all those guys.
I just, you know, when you see and you start to look at the common denominators and we talk about the college football playoff or teams that are competing year in and year out to be considered for a spot, it's all the same stuff. Quarterback, offensive line, defensive front, tall corners, all right? And it's what a very select few have in major college football.
War daddies on the defensive line and a quarterback that's better than your quarterback.
Yeah.
And that Clemson class for 2020, built from the inside out. That is how Dabo Swinney has constructed this. He'll always get those guys at the skill positions. Those seem to be a given as well, but he is dominating in the trenches on the offensive line and defensive line. 5 of Clemson's top 6 players in the class are O-line, D-line. 4 of the top 6 players in the class are on that defensive front.
And you look at and obviously Clemson has to recruit nationally because the state of South Carolina, it produces really good players, just not a lot of them. But their national footprint continues to grow. And in this class, you look at it, quarterbacks coming from California. Walker Parks, Kentucky. They have linemen from Tennessee. I mean, their national footprint continues to expand as they continue to be in the college football.
Yeah, and the further away they are, the harder they are to recruit, the harder they are to keep happy. You can make an argument that nobody has had more out-of-state guys pan out to the level that Clemson has.
It all really started when Dabo Swinney got there, because you remember at that point, Spurrier was at South Carolina.
He was
kind of owning
guys.
the state.
He was owning it.
And they went to Florida and did a great job. And now that they've built what they've been able to build and kind of being a national championship contender every year, they've been able to reclaim their own state while remaining to have a national presence.
Jason Jones for Alabama.
I'll tell you what, Jason Jones working there on the offensive line against Andrew Rame, Oklahoma commit. But Jason Jones is interesting. He's committed to Alabama, working on the defensive line. But, Jerry, I think if his greatest upside may be in a white jersey going forward as an offensive lineman.
I think as an offensive guard.
Don't tell him
his
that.
high ceiling. And you know what? It's crazy thing about Jason Jones, when he said, I'm going to play in the Under Armour All-American game when we invited him, he was about 6'4" 3/4. He's closing on 6'6" 1/2 now.
Yeah.
He's a late developer physically. And look at that body, though. He's got an offensive guard body.
Oh, yeah.
That's Jason Jones.
He's also got a two-gap nose body.
Well, you know, talking to him on check-in day, that offer from Alabama is on the offensive line. He also has worked looking at a few other schools. Baylor and Oregon also in the mix down the stretch. Those, he said, potentially on the defensive side of the ball. So it'll be interesting to see how that recruitment plays out. You know, maybe that position, how that plays a role.
And, you know, you look at Alabama's recruiting class, obviously our number 2 class right now, 20 ESPN 300 commitments. But you think about what that class could have been, Craig Harbert. I mean, look, Eric Gilbert finished second on him. And obviously you finished second on a lot of guys. But Clemson's almost selecting more than Alabama is selecting right now.
Yeah, it might be.
We got a future Alabama-LSU battle going on. Chris Braswell, defensive end. Marcus Dumervil signed with LSU. A really nice job. See how he came off with that right hand, quickly knocked down the offensive tackle's hands to get the edge.
All I got to say is good luck to an offensive tackle in this drill when you're going up against a rush linebacker. On a wet field. Good luck.
Look at this offensive line. You see LSU. You saw Marcus Dumerville, Micah Mazuka, who's headed to Michigan, Harrison to Oklahoma, Mitchell Mays to Clemson.
Yeah, and you look at Marlon Martinez, obviously high school teammate with Dumerville at St. Thomas Aquinas, the powerhouse in South Florida, both headed to LSU. I think Martinez helped recruit Dumerville to LSU as much as Ed Orgeron did.
And Martinez is a really valuable player because for St. Thomas Aquinas, he has played center, guard, and tackle, brings tremendous versatility to the trenches. And here at the center, Luke Pettibone, Simon, and I'll tell you what, this guy, he's built low to the ground.
Number 74.
But he is a technician, and he is a yard dog. His grandfather was Richie Pettibone, who was a long-time defensive coordinator for those great Redskin teams. If you're a Redskin fan, remember those good days and not what it is now.
Pettibone, he's one of the rare offensive linemen that doesn't have great arm length that has a chance to be a really good player.
How many Wake Forest kids have we had here at Under Armour All-American?
The current punter, Maggio, was
and
here.
And the slot receiver that they had.
Yeah, so this is the third.
Who was really good. So the third. Who was that kid? Mike Campanaro.
Very
Play
good.
with the Ravens for
Very
a while.
good.
Yeah. How about me? Hey, I'm going
good.
deep. I'm going way back.
I was thinking Greg Dortch, but no, it wasn't him.
Way
you
back.
went Campanaro.
Pre-Dortch.
Anton Harrison there on the offensive line.
He's
with a nice
impressed me early on. He's a guy coming in here I didn't know what to expect. You know, the film was good, but he still looked a little bit raw at times. And we're still early on, but last night in one-on-ones and here early, he's shown good frame, good feet. He's done a really nice job here early on.
Look, we've talked about Oklahoma's got to improve on the defensive side of the ball.
But they develop offensive line.
Their evaluation and development on offensive line is as good as anybody in the country.
Really good.
Nathan Anderson on team pressure, I think is the most athletic offensive lineman in this game. He's a kid who was a lacrosse player that Oklahoma got on very early, so they do a great job evaluating and developing that position.
And he's already full Oklahoma mode there.
Yeah, orange down. He's going to get his fine from the Big 12 soon.
Is that a 15-yard penalty today?
Yes. Yeah.
All these kids, they know where everyone has signed.
Yes.
They we talk about, this is an LSU-Alabama matchup. They know that. They know who they're going up against. These guys travel in similar camp circles.
That's the one difference now at the All-Star games versus before the early signing period. There used to be a lot more pressure in recruiting in the ping pong tables and the pool tables. Now there's not as much pressure. These guys have a little bit. You don't have to say no to as many of your buddies anymore. You've already signed
in the
your
barn.
letters. Hayes in the barn.
Noticing
heck
Reggie
of an athlete
Grimes?
right here. Heck of an athlete.
Jalen Carter, again, important position. Georgia's trying to take that next step on the defensive side of the football. Going back to Reggie Grimes, he's playing as a defensive end in here, which if you're Oklahoma right now, you are praying that he fills out because that's where they need help.
Yeah. They need pass rush ability.
Yes.
Obviously, Ronnie Perkins missed the national semifinal game.
Yeah.
But they need pass rush ability. And then back end. They got to get better in their back end.
We talk about no pressure, though. He did not sign either. He's another guy to watch over the final month. He is committed but not signed. Monte Capehart working against Jalen Rivers, signed with Miami.
Jalen Rivers, his teammate Chance Williams also in the game, but not cleared health-wise, so he's not here this week. Two big wins for Manny Diaz in the summer, getting Rivers and Chance Williams, who's a difference-maker edge prospect. So interesting to see where Rivers plays for Miami. Does he stay at tackle, or do they start him at guard and then work him out the tackle as his career goes on?
That was textbook right there by big number 58 there on the offensive line.
Marcus Dumerville, nice job of getting set, getting his hands inside again. Did not panic, did not overset, did not give Braswell a clear path. A little bit different story on that rep there. Great job by the defensive lineman and quickly getting to the shoulder. Offensive lineman overextended, did not the jerseys tucked up, make it a little bit more difficult.
And Marcus Dumerville, his uncle played at Louisville. Elvis Dumerville went on to play in the NFL. Louisville tried to get him with those family ties.
He's got a big size advantage on old Uncle Elvis.
Just a touch.
There he is. There he is. Listen, Luke Pettibone may not have great length, but he has a leverage advantage, and he uses it to his advantage. I mean,
he's the most physical player every time the ball's snapped.
Yeah. He's working at Jalen Carter's really interesting, number 88, because 2 years ago he was a tight end.
Yes.
But he kept growing and filling out, and I think he finally realized his greatest upside is going to be in the trenches, and he is powerful.
That was Dominic Bailey, who's headed to Tennessee out of St. Francis Academy in Maryland.
I mean, you want to. We talk about keeping the best players at home. Is it is it tougher anywhere than for Maryland, in the University of Maryland? I mean, to keep Bailey. We've mentioned all these guys from Maryland. Bailey's going to Tennessee. Jacobs is going to Penn State. Right. Just think about the defensive players in the state in this class, and they're all leaving. Yeah. They did a great job getting Rakim Jarrett to flip on signing day from LSU, but the defensive players are all boom. They're going to SEC and Big Ten.
If Maryland, the timing of Mike Locksley getting hired, their new facility being completed, they just completed their indoor facility. It'll be interesting to see their improvement on the arms race, and if that helps keep some of those kids at home.
Here's the biggest problem, just talking to high school coaches in Maryland, is they're not the big fish. If you're a kid and you're looking at a Big Ten or SEC school, you go visit Columbus, you go to Tuscaloosa, you go to some of these places, it's a college football environment.
Absolutely.
You're right outside of D.C. There's a lot of things going on, and I think for some of those kids, they realize, hey, I can get a better college football experience.
It's not the only game in town.
Exactly. And it makes it – I think that's a hurdle for Maryland. I think one of the things, though, Mike Locksley has done a nice job doing, though, is Maryland before was late on in-state kids. And some of these kids were saying, well, how come out-of-state schools are offering me before Maryland is? And I think one thing Mike Locksley and his staff have done in a very short time is getting out on some of the younger guys and being quicker. Nice move there.
Dominic Bailey, again, he's got a quick first step, really good athlete at that position.
Let's go down to the field to Rini Ngolia. Rini?
So I'm in the trenches with these guys, and it might surprise you. I'm a former running back, but this is my favorite one-on-one drill right here. Offensive lineman, defensive lineman. And just to piggyback on what Matt said a little while ago, great teams at the college level build their teams from the inside out. There's no doubt about it. You know, you have the skill players, the sexy picks, the receivers, the quarterbacks, running backs. I just think there's more of them out there to get. There's not that many dominant two-gap defensive tackles or that great rush defensive end. So they're great teams in recruiting. This is the heartbeat of recruiting. This is where it all happens, and we're seeing some really good players today, guys.
If you can't keep your quarterback upright, what does it matter, right?
That's right. Coming up next, we'll look at the team pressure. Wide receivers and defensive backs, the offensive side. Take a look at the quarterbacks as well. Under Armour All-America Week continue. Great players in years past: Julio Jones, Amari Cooper, A.J. Green, Alshon Jeffrey, Jarvis Landry, Leonard Fournette, Jadeveon Clowney, Joey Bosa, just some of the NFL stars that have played in the Under Armour All-America game. Now we're taking a look at team pressure and the quarterbacks there on that side of the ball. We're looking at Chandler Morris, again, who will be announcing with us at the Under Armour All-America game. Former Arkansas commit, decommitted when his father was fired from Arkansas. Father Chad, now part of the staff there at Auburn.
Now, the one thing about a Chandler Morris, you see the size difference at the quarterback. So Chandler Morris and Drew Pine on the other team, they're not going to be the biggest guys in terms of physical stature. If you're on the shorter side, you better be two things. You better be a really good athlete, and you better have premier arm strength. You have to compensate with those two things. And I think both of these young guys have it. Now, with team pressure here, you're going to see a quarterback in Jeffrey Sims that I think has an opportunity. There's Haynes King right there, and Drew Pine, as we talked about. But for me, guys like Jeffrey Sims are steals for a program like Georgia Tech.
I was going to say Jeffrey Sims, maybe not instant impact day one, maybe the most impactful recruit for any college in this class. They may not have a choice.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. He's the first player that signed with Georgia Tech to play in the Under Armour All-America game. But he was a former Florida State commitment. But the transition in that program from offensive, from what Paul Johnson did, to what they're doing under Jeff Collins, you have to win, and you have to get a really good quarterback. And they did through the coaching change at Florida State.
Yep, no doubt. See Chandler Morris ripping it right there. Good tight releases. I just think that Sims there is he's going to still get bigger. He's still going to fill out. You see the frame. He's obviously tall, long arms. Watch the ball come off his hand. I mean, that's the thing about him is everything he does is very, very smooth. Ball comes out clean, very consistent mechanically.
One of the things about him is, Tom, as a junior, he was 6'1", 170.
Right.
By the end of his junior season, he was 6'3", 195. He started to grow, and that's when his recruitment picked up. Because do you remember his path here started with you at the Orlando
Under Armour camp.
in
Yep.
February. And you walked over to us and you said, you know what, I rarely want to invite a guy off of a camp.
I hate
from what
doing
I've seen from him. But you saw it early on.
I did, yeah.
This is recruitment that kind of came together a little bit late in terms of the accelerated calendar recruiting.
Credit Florida State at the time. They were on him, and other folks weren't.
Look at these wide receivers here. That's Keyshawn Boutte, who is headed to LSU out of Westgate High School.
Yeah, really versatile player. I mean, threw for over 1,000 yards, ran for over 800 his senior year.
There you see the fastest player in the game, Arian Smith. He of the 10 300-meter time.
He is a blur.
Georgia. Oh, he is so fast. And you know what? He's not a track guy. If you watch him in drills, he is a loose hip, ankle flexible guy that can change direction. That kid has got a very high ceiling. There you see, saw another name there, Marvin Mims, headed to Oklahoma, was a Stanford commitment out of the Dallas area. Marvin Mims broke the national and state of Texas receiving yards record in a season with over 2,600. I don't know if that's any good, but that's a lot of yards, Shicky.
Looking at Michael Redding III out of IMG Academy.
Tell me that's a
number 11
career.
as well.
That's this season.
How's that even possible?
They played 15 games, and he had monster games in the
We
playoffs.
have double-digit catches every week.
He had 6 straight 200-yard receiving
Holy
games.
smokes.
And again, going to Oklahoma, was committed to Stanford, and great route runner, just has a great feel for the position, and he can locate the ball in the air.
CeeDee Lamb just announced he is headed to the NFL, foregoing his senior season, so in comes Marvin Mims. Got some great coaches here. Ed Reed, recently inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, now here helping teach. Deion Sanders, also a Hall of Famer, the greatest of all time. Prime time helping us out.
We should credit the high school head coaches, too, that join as coordinators, the position coaches, guys that are living this high school coaching life as teachers, administrators, coaches, and, many of them from programs like Hoover, these high-end, high-standard, expectation-level programs. So when they come into an environment like this, they adapt very quickly to the level of talent and know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Chandler Morris from Highland Park High School in Texas with Rini.
Chandler, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good.
How's the week been so far?
It's been a lot of fun.
So now your commitment is back open, right? You're going to announce Thursday, correct?
Yes, sir.
Obviously, I'm not going to ask you who it is, but do you know who it is now? Are you ready for it?
Yes, sir, I do.
And so the commitment came back open. How's it been? How was that process like?
It was tough just opening up the recruitment. Obviously, I thought I was going to go to a place for a while and then opening things up, and it changes a lot in your life. But, I'm fortunate to be in this position.
Talk about this week and just the quality, the talent here that you're going against and you're seeing.
It's a lot of fun, especially getting you ready for college. Just the speed of the game's a lot faster than high school, and I think that's going to be really an advantage going into the next level, getting to experience this with the best athletes in the country.
Now, being the son of a coach, what kind of, how does that help you, or how did that help you develop as a quarterback, do you think?
Just staying calm and poised in situations. Practice was a little hectic yesterday, but just kind of staying calm and just understanding everything and just putting your head down and going to work.
And how much was Dad influential in the process? I know obviously he's at Auburn now coaching in this process of picking your school. How much?
He helped me out a lot just by the coaches that he trusts. All of my top schools, all those coaches are good guys and have a great staff around them, so he's helped me out too.
Awesome. Chandler Morris, thank you, buddy. Best of luck with your career.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Rini. Just an interesting journey for Chandler. You think you're going to one spot, Dad's job changes,
Right.
so your future changes a little bit. Now his dad's at Auburn. Auburn, one of those schools that is listed. And again, good coaches at all of those schools.
Yeah, I think going into his decision, Oklahoma, Virginia Tech, I felt were the top two there. His father has a really good relationship with Justin Fuente, dating back to when Justin Fuente was on Gary Patterson's staff at TCU. Oklahoma, obviously, a lot of respect for Lincoln Riley's offense.
That offense, though, scheme-wise at Oklahoma, fits what that guy does, if that's the choice he makes.
Again, Chandler Morris, one of the 7 players that will be announcing with us at the Under Armour All-America game. Some of them have already signed. Some of them are going to let the rest of the country know where they are going to be headed. Get their moment in the sun for us. We hope it's a sunny day coming up on Thursday. Under Armour All-America game on ESPN2. Head coaches certainly have some crushes and affinities on these kids, want them to enroll through school. What about celebrity crushes for some of these All-Americans?
My celebrity crush is...
I don't follow nobody.
I don't have one.
I don't think I have one. So many.
I do got a couple. My celebrity crush is Beyonce.
LMA.
Rihanna. Zendaya.
Rihanna.
India Love. Beyonce. That's my queen. Kendall Jenner. Selena Gomez.
Madison Beer.
Zendaya. I love you, baby. Yeah, she gonna see this. Watch.
Sydney McLaughlin.
Sydney McLaughlin.
Sydney McLaughlin. He said her. Chris and I are gonna have to talk about that. Chris isn't tall enough, it don't matter. I'll talk to him when we get out there. I shot my shot on Twitter too, it didn't work. I can't talk to you because I got a girlfriend, but celebrity crush, remember that one.
Hey, you shoot your shot on Twitter. That's a big matzo ball hanging out. Under Armour All-American Week practices continue. We've got team drills, team practices still to come here at ESPN Wide World of Sports Complex. Some of the best high school players in the country coming to college campuses near you. Under Armour All-America Week rolls on. One of the cool things about the week, the stars come out, especially those Under Armour athletes like Cam Newton. Carolina Panthers could have used a healthy Cam Newton this year. Ron Rivera as well. But good to see Cam out here today. Any NFL and former NFL players that are here today as well. Now it's time for some team drills where we actually get to see some things that resemble more of the football that we're used to.
Yeah, 11 on 11, starting to work out. Kinks getting ready for.
I was going to say, you hope to see something that looks like football. It's day one, and it often looks nothing like football.
Worsham was injured earlier when we were showing the Team Savage wide receivers. He is back on the field. Good to see that. Just a little minor arm injury. Haynes King's quarterbacking here, headed to Texas A&M. He reports January 7th, the early enrollee. 5 of our 6 quarterbacks in the game are early enrollees. The only one that's not is Robbie Ashford because he's an MLB prospect. We'll look at Haynes King.
You mentioned Haynes King. Let's take a look at our Zenith Next Level comparison. Some big shoes you're feeling there.
Yeah, listen, I saw this and I thought it was really interesting.
Craig.
You talk about Justin Fields being a tremendous athlete. When you look at the testing number for Haynes King, and they're very comparable, if not spots better, and I think it speaks to the athleticism that he brings to that position. Obviously, he needs to continue to fill out that frame, but he's a tremendous athlete. And that 40 he ran was at an Under Armour camp in Dallas, and that's laser to laser. I mean, that's an accurate 40 time in terms of what he's bringing. So for Jimbo Fisher to get him into that program, he's bringing a true dual threat quarterback. I think once he continues to develop that frame, but a young man who's, we talked about earlier, his dad is his coach. So he's kind of used to being coached hard, a little bit maybe further along in some of the X's and O's and maybe some high school quarterbacks entering the college level. But his ceiling is extremely high as he heads there to the Aggies.
That athleticism is legit. He anchored relay teams at Longview High School. And those guys that were handing the baton to him were running backs on the state championship team. That's legit athleticism for a quarterback.
You see Jaquindon Jackson, he's here as well, but he's injured, tore his ACL in the state semifinal game. The thing that's a shame about that is he might be one of those guys that can play anywhere.
He's pound for pound maybe the best football player in the country.
Right, yeah.
He is a phenomenal talent. And he's got those big quarterback hands.
Yeah.
He's 10.5-inch hands. You know what the offensive coordinator hired at Texas, because of Urich was working with Justin Fields, may really benefit Jaquindon Jackson if he comes back healthy. Of course, he's going into a 2-quarterback class at Texas with Hudson Card, who's playing in this game as well.
Saw that last pass to Julian Fleming, number 1 overall prospect, number 1 wide receiver, became the first player in state history in Pennsylvania to reach 5,000 receiving career yard mark. And
the all-time state leader in TD catches and as well as yards. And it's just that blend. I mean, for us to put a wide receiver at number 1, you don't see that very often, but just the blend of size, speed, as well as intangibles, the young man who can certainly be a difference maker at the wide receiver position.
And speaking of Julian Fleming, we have the Under Armour Future 50 event where we bring down 50 of the top underclassmen in the country. He was probably more dominant in that last year than any other player we've had in the 4 or 5 years of Future 50. That was a show he put on last year.
He's built like Des Bryant was built coming out of high school.
And you're talking about a guy there. He was making one-handed catches look routine yesterday. I think even Reggie Wayne was like, this guy's about as good as everybody says he is.
Yeah. The 10th straight year we've had the #1 overall player here at the Under Armour All-America game. Number 80, Brendan Rice, son of Jerry Rice, running a route there.
Yeah, he's a little quicker off the line than I thought he was going to be.
I agree.
Coming in this, he was impressive yesterday, getting into routes, and then he's got that big physical body, not scared to throw it around.
You know, Mel Tucker has really hit
yes.
the ground running in recruiting, and he coached at Ohio State, coached at Georgia. He's coached in championship programs, so he knows what they look like, and he knows what they need to look like if they want to win at Colorado.
And got a chance to sign Jason Harris, the defensive end that we talked about earlier, out of the state of Arizona, because you're right. Colorado, you can't build your roster in state.
And the great thing so much is timing when you get a job. With the state of California, those kids in a mass exodus right now. It's a great time to be at Colorado, at Oregon. You know, you have a chance to go into Southern California and pool players, Arizona State.
Mentioned Brendan Rice, son of Jerry Rice, 3-time Super Bowl champ. He's sporting the number 80 today. As Craig Howard said, it might not have been his choice. Hall of Famer Jerry Rice. And again, he was a soccer player as a young kid, and his mom had some reservations about playing football, and put a football in his hand at around the age of 6, and he's been a football player ever since. Let's talk some running backs now here. That's Tank Bigsby.
He's had a great day and a half now.
Great senior year, too.
Yeah, great senior year. He's one of the more versatile running backs. You could line him up in the slot, even though he's got that running back body type, out of Southwest Georgia, headed to Auburn. But the coaches were raving about him on Team Savage yesterday after practice.
See, I mean, the nickname fits. He's a big back. Call him Tank. But he's smooth and decisive as a runner. You saw even there, the quick feet. He got a defender in space. He was able to quickly kind of juke him.
His physical measurements, too, are almost identical to Travis Etienne when he was coming out of high school. Tall, fluid, graceful in his movements, but has enough physicality to lower his shoulder, push the pile, break through arm tackles.
There aren't many guys Kirby Smart's lost in state in the last 2 or 3 classes they really wanted. That was one of them. They wanted Tank.
But good ball skills, too, as well, is going to be important heading into that offense there at Auburn. Gus Malzahn and now Chad Morris is the OC.
If Auburn's offensive line will come through next year, they quietly have a really good group of running backs there.
Running backs, wideouts.
Wideouts. They got speed at wideout. Bo Nix is he'll take a big step next year as a sophomore.
Let's go over to Arini Angolia. Let's take a look at the 2020 Spotlight Cleat presented by Under Armour.
And look at this cleat, the UA Spotlight Lux. If I had this cleat when I was playing, I probably would have ran a 4.25 40. Probably would have stayed in the NFL a little bit longer. This is a beautiful cleat, lightweight by Under Armour. I just love the technology of this cleat, and I think that's the biggest thing is how light this cleat is. It gives you great stability as well, good traction. Great stuff. DK Metcalf of the Seattle Seahawks wears this cleat, played his college ball at Ole Miss, and if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for you. And this is just an unbelievable cleat by Under Armour. Great technology here. I mean, this UA Spotlight Lux, it features threadlock technology, knit upper that combines with the traditional knit and the melted TPU. It yarns for lightweight, breathable, and supportive upper wear. I mean, it's just a great cleat. One that, as I said in the open, I wish I had this when I played. Would have been a little better if I had this back in the day.
Thanks, Rainey. Matt Schick, Jerry Hamilton, Craig Howard, and Tom Luganbill here with you for Under Armour All-America Week. Let's go back down onto the field with the athletes actually wearing those cleats today. And some more team drills as we check in on team pressure.
Hudson Card at quarterback. We spoke about him a little earlier.
Yep.
You know, like Travis has put out a few quarterbacks over the year. Of all the quarterbacks in this game, the ball may come out of his hand the cleanest and quickest.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We'll talk about a young man, though, with getting that weight program.
Yes.
And he is of probably the slightest build of all the quarterbacks. Still a lot of physical upside for him. Had a chance. He probably a prospect after your own hard time, lives on the lake. I said, what do you do for fun? He goes, I like to get out there and jet ski and spend some time out.
My man.
Yeah.
That's it.
His star rating just went up.
That's right.
and can we give out 6 stars?
And to your point, Hobbs, with Sam Ellinger coming back for his senior season, Hudson Card, he comes in and gets a spring practice under his belt, but he's afforded that year to physically mature before he goes into that quarterback competition with Casey Thompson and Jaquindon Jackson.
Well, we talked about Jaquindon. I said, what was it like signing with a class with 2 quarterbacks? He goes, you know what? I love this answer. Everywhere you go, you got to compete.
Yep.
So if that's the right fit for me, I'm willing to go there and compete, and that's the right attitude to have.
And you know what it means a lot when a kid says that is, did he grow up in Hudson Card's instance? He grew up wanting to wear the burnt orange and white. You don't stray from that competition as much when you're at that school that you grew up watching every Saturday. You're willing to compete with that uniform on a little bit more.
Well, and he comes from a program with a very high expectation to perform. So, you're not handed anything at the high school level either.
Yeah, he committed back in May of 2018. Here, look at number 22, E.J. Smith, sporting the number made famous by Emmitt Smith, his father, who had a great announcement with us on ESPN. E.J. Smith committing and signing with Stanford out of Jesuit College Prep there in Dallas.
Hey, Matt, didn't you find it interesting? We were sitting there on set for signing day, and Jim Moore was with us, and the kid signs with Stanford, and Jim Moore's body language is like, Stanford. And it was just, and then when we started talking about it off air, it was, man, and Stanford offers a guy, they're tough to beat because of everything that encompasses the Stanford
if
experience.
Stanford is in on a kid, it's for a specific reason, not just athletically. And Emmitt Smith, of course, had a great soundbite about, look, he doesn't have to go where I went to school. He doesn't have to go to Florida. I'll wear that hat, and we'll support wherever he goes. And Emmitt and his wife were just so effusive with praise and support for EJ and all their kids.
And if you're a Stanford fan, you're getting a version of Christian McCaffrey. This is a young man
really?
who could be a running back.
He can do a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, his ball skills are phenomenal. We had a one-handed catch contest last night, and he made it look effortless in the way that he was able to continually snag.
He won that, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, his ball skills are off the charts. We had him slotted on the roster as a wide receiver. There was a running back injury. I said, can you play running back? He goes, I thought I was coming as a running back. He goes, just put me wherever you need me. That's fine. And you love to see that versatility.
And what's interesting about EJ is, so at Deion Sanders' Prime 21 camp in the summer in Dallas, he actually worked out at wide receiver. So he wants to be very versatile. He wants to be a well-rounded player. He wants to be able to play running back, wide receiver. He wants to be able to stay on the field for all 3 downs.
Great kid as well. Always big smile. Like I said, willing when asked to do whatever was needed to kind of help out this week.
Well, from a big smile to a big kid, about Darnell Washington, who's number 6 overall. He's 5-star. There he is, number 1.
He's a creature.
It's hard to make an offensive tackle look short.
Roger Jones, who's standing next to him, 6'6", 300 pounds. He's looking up at him.
Is he 6'7"?
Yeah.
When you watch him in the line, though, during one-on-ones and warm-up drills, and he's 1.5 feet taller than everybody else, oh, it's hysterical. Look at him.
Look at the length of his arms, too.
I know, look at his arms.
What's his wingspan, 88 inches,
Yeah,
87
easy.
inches? It's ridiculous.
It's like the movie Jack.
Yeah.
He's an older kid playing with
He's like a taller version of like Antonio Gates.
And again, he'll be announcing with you, Matt Schick, on the Under Armour All-America game. Georgia's been trending a long time in that recruitment. Tennessee made a really good run there in December. Darnell has signed his letter of intent, and he's told everybody, I've signed my letter of intent, and you'll find out on the 2nd where I'm going.
The recruiting process has been interesting for him. He admitted, I think I've silently committed to 4 different schools during the process. There he is. There's his showing the wingspan for us. What's the wingspan there?
I don't know, but we needed a wide shot.
Kevin Durant thinks that's a big wingspan, okay?
I mean, it's LeBron James size, right? 6'7", 250, 260.
Could you argue it's the best tight end class as a group between your inline and your H-back guys?
At the top.
At the top,
It's a strong. I mean, there's only been 3 5-star tight ends in the last decade. 2 of them are in this class. Eric Gilbert, Darnell Washington. And listen, we asked him on set right at the top, what separates you?
Everything?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm too big for the DBs. I'm too fast for the linebackers. I mean, it just sums it up beautifully, yeah. And, hey, as a quarterback, how nice is that wingspan and that catch radius? That size.
Big room for error there.
Yeah, just be in a zip code, and you got a chance at a completion.
He goes to Georgia, Jake Robinson. Could have used it this year, but the Dogs, they were saddled with injuries.
There's the Zach Evans, number 3 there. We're down from Houston, Texas, North Shore. You want to talk about the guys. We talk about all the guys that had great senior years. Zach did not have the best of senior years. And Tom Lugan, we were talking about yesterday, he comes out here And when he turns it on, he just looks like one of the top 3 or 4 players in the country.
Regardless of position.
Yeah.
But that's the thing with him is he's got to figure out all the other stuff, all the stuff that's going to matter. Because talent isn't the problem.
No.
Talent is never going to be in debate with him. And, boy, is he a difference maker type of runner.
He has come in and embraced this opportunity, though. Come in with a big smile. It's really out there. I think excited. I think after a rough senior year to kind of maybe be moving forward and getting out there and competing today throughout this week. And, it's one of the things is this is a big comparison I know that I'm making, but in running styles.
Well, you're on a roll so far.
Why stop now, right? But Eric Dickerson, remember that tall, upright, kind of glided along, maybe looked like it was really straight line, yet still had the ability to make people miss. And you could certainly, in terms of running styles, make that comparison between Evans and Eric Dickerson, another great running back out of the state of Texas.
That's us in the background. Hey, we're waving. Hey, everyone turn. We're on TV. Hey, how are you? So
I want to make a comparison for you, man.
Please do that during the commercial break. I know what's coming. Again, E.J. Smith. There was the intended receiver on that pass from Chandler Morris. E.J. Smith heading to Stanford. Under Armour All-America Week rolls on. Great time here at the practices. The game coming up on January 2nd on ESPN2. Some of the college stars of tomorrow hanging out with us today. Again, more of these team practices.
Got to tell you, Jacqueline Roy's been in the backfield every time the camera's gone to number 99 there. He has lived in the backfield for 2 days.
Good initial burst, quick feet for a big man, really powerful as well. Use his hands. He can sit there and anchor when you need, but as you said, Jerry, he can also kind of get upfield and disrupt.
Very shocking. The state of Louisiana has a lot of good defensive linemen.
Yeah.
Very shocking.
Well, it was big because actually it was down a year ago. They had to go to Utah to get a D lineman
Yeah.
in that class last year. It was actually a down year in state.
But they've been waiting on this class.
Yeah, and it paid off with a guy like Roy, obviously keeping him close to home.
Check more on the practice series in just a moment. Let's go to Mic'd Up, presented by Under Armour.
Hey, ESPN, baby, we here. Under Armour game 2019. Yes, and I'm gonna do what I always do. What's that, Prime? I'm glad you asked. Win.
I want them to remember this.
Do the little things. Let's go.
Do the little things, like Coach said. Come on, baby. Steps count. He ain't want none of me. He ain't want none of me.
We
grew up on the street.
on the street playing.
They don't play like that anymore.
No, we played at the bus stop before school.
Straight
Went
up.
to school funky.
Yeah, we
Went to
did.
school funky.
Yeah, we did.
Because we played this bus stop, played against that bus stop.
Exactly.
And we traveled in the morning.
Exactly.
Hey, fella, we're going to meet on the corner at 6:30. We're going to go whoop them, then we get on their bus.
No doubt. No doubt. See you at school.
You see you at school.
do it again?
Yeah, right.
It ain't the same.
It ain't the same, dog.
Then they got off the bus and walked uphill to school.
5 miles in the snow each way.
That's exactly right. Really cool to see Ed Reed fresh off his new bust in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and now here at Under Armour Week, and Deion Sanders, and as Luke's mentioned, all the high school coaches that are involved in this week as well, helping put on this incredible showing. Some of the best high school talent in high school football and soon to be college football.
Well, it's great to see how engaged they are. I mean, they're just not here for their name. I mean, they want to instill the wisdom that they've learned over the years on these young men. Deion Sanders has been doing this for several years. Ed Reed's first year. He actually worked with the UA Next, the 8th graders previous to this, and now we're moving on up. Got the bump up to the seniors, and still you see just the passion and how much they want to work with these guys.
I think you see it's one thing to see the personalities on camera. Where we're lucky is we get to watch them teach one-on-one with kids, and they're both great communicators and teachers.
Jeff Sims showing his dual threat abilities, diving into the end zone there. The Georgia Tech signee.
Maybe the most important recruit in this class for college is Jeff Sims. And
keeping track. There are 94 players here. We talked about 72 of them.
And still have tomorrow.
Yeah. And we talked correctly about 65 of them.
Yeah, that's very good. And Craig made incorrect comparisons to at least 5.
Tomorrow's another day.
We pronounced 12 of them correctly as well, their names. Under Armour All-America Week continues. More comparisons as Craig will compare more players to Hall of Famers coming up tomorrow. What do you take away here from today?
Well, that I set a high bar. I think, one of the interesting things that having been a part of the Under Armour All-America game since the beginning is to watch these players start to gel. I think tomorrow will be a really interesting day because you're going to see a big jump from a non-padded practice last night to today. So I think you're going to really start to see things sharpen up tomorrow.
After the night practice yesterday, I wonder what the energy would be like on the quick turnaround this morning. Very impressed with the energy of all the guys, the competitive nature of all these guys. And again, the offensive linemen are really in shape this year, Luke.
Yeah, they're in shape, but it's always the same story every year. If you have a bad day because you got your rear end kicked and it's maybe a little bit much for you, what do you do when you come back the next day? Are you a guy that's going to compete when things didn't go your way?
Day 2 will certainly be better because the players will be more entrenched and acclimated, and Tom Lukaville will not be a part of the coverage. Tom, enjoy your bowl game.
I can do all the comparisons I want tomorrow.
On to the Citrus Bowl. Heck with you guys.
Enjoy the bowl game. Luke's has got Bama, Michigan. We got Under Armour. More on Tuesday.